Coming up this weekend, some might say that middleweight is the worst division in all of MMA, but listen, hey, anticipate a finish in this fight coming up this weekend. We have new Mansa Joaquin Buckley taking on Albert Duraev, the former welterweight champ until he couldn't defend the title anymore because he was stripped, because he missed weight, and then he became a middleweight champ over the ACB. And for Duraev, he's such an interesting case because he had a 3-year layoff. And then his manager must have went, you know what? The only way we can get you a UFC contract is to fight on Dana White's Contender Series. But you're going to win that fight. And then you're going to sign a contract for little to no money and little to no popularity. And that's where Albert Duraev finds himself right now. Because in his last fight, he fought against Roman Kopylov, a guy who we were sold a bill of goods, but we weren't delivered. And in that fight, did Duraev look good? Yeah, he looked pretty good. Did he get dropped? Yeah, he might have got dropped. Did his eyes swell up like a grapefruit? You bet it did. So Duraev's coming into this fight with a decided advantage in one major aspect against Joaquin Buckley. And that's the fact that when Duraev takes guys down, they have a very hard time getting back up to their feet. Would you agree, Matt?
It's like you know those weighted blankets? Some of them are very pleasant.
I don't.
Wow, Craig doesn't like a weighted blanket.
Nope.
Some of them are nice. Some of them weigh like 50 pounds, though, and he can't get them off of you. Albert Duraev is like that weighted blanket. That is his fighting style. And really, this fight comes down to, can Duraev protect his head until he gets the fight to the mat? Because Joaquin Buckley kind of reminds me of Jordan Poole. Like, the meme right now is, Jordan Poole hoops like there's only bad bitches in attendance. Joaquin Buckley fights like there's nothing but bad bitches watching. And I kind of respect that, if we're all being honest, because he goes, like we all know, he's got one of the greatest knockouts of all time against Ipika Sanganai, but he does go for it in those first 5 minutes and throws crazy leather. And live by the sword, died by the sword. If you're able to land those big shots, he'll have a win like we saw against Jordan Wright. Another absolutely brutal knockout that was insane to watch. But we also know what happens when Joaquin Buckley isn't able to, land with that big blitz. He doesn't just tire as fights go on. He will change his fighting style. I think that's really important because even in the Kevin Holland fight, and I do think that's an important one to bring up, I know that was his UFC debut against a guy who is fighting further up on the card, although be it down a division. He goes from throwing massive bursts to being more of a single-shot striker, and I do worry about that when you're fighting a guy like Duraev, who, on one hand, it honestly might help him. The more I'm talking myself out of this, because if Buckley doesn't let his hands go as much, maybe that will allow him to focus a little bit more on his takedown defense, keep his hands a little bit lower, because that's going to be the key for this fight. Again, Joaquin Buckley cannot win this fight if he gets taken down at any point. Like, his defensive grappling, his first step, none of his direct counters are very good against someone who has the grappling style of Albert Duraev. So, more than anything, I'm very curious, how is Joaquin Buckley going to use his footwork to just stay away from Duraev?
Well, I mean, for Buckley, he's gone to every camp under the sun, Murcielago MMA, Elevate MMA. I've made that the placeholder in the graphics for this one, Preston Parsons gym that's in Florida. But you look at it from Buckley, even just focus on his last fight. He's taken on Abdulrazak Alhassan. How does the fight start? Buckley initiates some of the grappling. Buckley has success with the grappling. Second round, it's close. I mean, Buckley grappling, you have no success from Alhassan. Third round, Alhassan takes him down 3 times and has a ton of success. I don't know about this whole thing about Joaquin Buckley. I get it. First burst, first round, tons of success. In the UFC, again, we can pick out some of the wins. You talked about it. Kasanganai, Jordan Wright, Antonio Arroyo, Abdulrazak Alhassan by split decision. It's not the greatest level of competition that's in the UFC. Some of the guys not necessarily still with the promotion. His Instagram bio says most viral fighter of all time. He's got 149,000 Instagram followers. He was on a Kanye track, but Calvin Kattar has more followers on Instagram.
But that does mean going viral. His one video, I think, does have the most shares and views of any UFC video ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like being,
not at all.
It's kind of like being the John Oates of the group. He
In
went
what
viral.
way, Craig?
He went viral because Daryl was the viral vessel that got him onto the airwaves.
I don't think that's the best comp of all time. Albert Duraev's style is made to beat guys like Joaquin Buckley, though. And yes, I'm worried about Duraev getting clipped with a big shot early because he is an upright striker, and he hasn't really mastered that, Marvin Vittori-ness to his game, where it's, hey, how do I get on the inside to actually take the fight where I need to take it for me to have the majority of my success? But every minute that ticks off the clock favors Duraev even more, and even more, and even more. And Buckley has fought in a slightly more reserved tone his last couple of fights, but I still don't think it's going to be enough to beat someone like Duraev, who will force the fight to you, especially with his own wrestling exchanges. And I do think that's the key. If he can Not getting the takedown, like the first takedown, might honestly be beneficial for Duraev. The more he can chain wrestle and just make Joaquin Buckley work early on in this fight is going to help him even more as the fight goes on. It's almost going to work for Duraev like a leg kick or a body kick would work for a more natural striker. I do think him just trying to impose his physicality on Joaquin Buckley is going to be very important. And again, I bring it back to what I said at the start of the video, which is this fight is just, it only comes down to, can Duraev protect his head until he gets that takedown? Because yes, he's upright. He doesn't take a shot all that well. His one X factor cancels out everything Joaquin Buckley's good at.
Yeah, this is a really odd one. Again, for Duraev, his last time out against Kopylov, he went 111-16 in the total strikes, but he also got dinged to the old eyeball, and it definitely didn't look very good. So for Duraev, that last fight against Kopylov was about 6 months ago, almost 7 months ago for Mr. Joaquin Buckley's last time out 4 months ago against Abdurazak Alhassan. We look at the odds for this fight. Duraev opened the favorite -160, now -213. We have a look at Joaquin Buckley, open to +140, +171 as it stands. Over-under on Tapology, surprise us, it is to you. I'm going to say over-under 72.5% Duraev.
I'll say over.
I'm going to say it's over. It is under, so it is 837 total votes, 66% Duraev, 38% by decision, 46% by submission for the 34% that have Buckley, 71% by knockout. It would surprise the bejesus out of me if Joaquin Buckley beat Albert Duraev by decision or submission. I will say that much. This is a really tough one, though. I mean, for Albert Duraev, that one X factor is so good and so strong. Closing the distance, though, you always do worry about a guy like Joaquin Buckley.
Abdurazak Alhassan's not that good at grappling, and he can't take a shot at 185.
Judo Thunder.
That's fine. He's not all that great at his... Jacob Malkoun took him down 400 times in a 50.
He wasn't ready for it.
I don't care. Abdurazak Alhassan is not a great defensive grappler or a great offensive grappler. Joaquin Buckley could barely grapple with him. I think Albert Duraev, he's the bigger fighter, and I do think that's really going to matter. Joaquin Buckley has a really big upper body, but he's kind of small for this division, and I do think that if Duraev's able to get on top of him, he's going to sap a lot of his strength, so I like Duraev in this fight.
Both of us going with the former welterweight champion Albert Duraev to get the win. That grinding, grimy style definitely doesn't bode well for the guys in this middleweight division, and it is an interesting fight. We move forward. Tim Means taking on Kevin Holland, Donald Cerrone, Joe Lozon, and Lozon's prodigy? Question mark? Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett in that main event. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.